The scent of coffee pulled her from sleep before her eyes even opened. Unfamiliar sheets against her skin, a pounding headache, and the slow, horrifying realization that the oversized t-shirt she wore, the only thing she wore, belonged to her employee, the quiet single father whose career she held in her hands. Mia Winters, the untouchable CEO who prided herself on perfect control, had just woken up in Jake Sullivan's guest room with no memory of how she got there, and somewhere in the house she could hear the cheerful voice of his 7-year-old daughter. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Your support means everything. Jake Sullivan stared at the ceiling of his bedroom, exhaustion weighing on him like a physical presence. The digital clock on his nightstand read 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his alarm would sound. He hadn't slept more than 20 minutes at a stretch all night, his mind racing with the impossible situation unfolding in his guest room. His boss, his intimidating, brilliant, untouchable boss, was asleep down the hall wearing nothing but his old college t-shirt. The same boss who would be deciding on promotions next week. The same boss who had never so much as smiled at him in the 3 years he'd worked at Winters Architectural Design. He replayed the previous night in his mind for the 100th time. The company holiday party, the unexpected snowstorm, Mia Winters clearly having had too much to drink, insisting she could drive herself home, his intervention, her car keys in his pocket, the argument in the parking lot as snow collected on their shoulders, his insistence that she couldn't drive in her condition, her stubborn refusal to let him call her a cab. "I'll drive you home," he had finally offered, desperate to end the standoff before they both froze. "Absolutely not," she had snapped. "I don't need one of my employees knowing where I live." That was when Lily had appeared at his side, his 7-year-old daughter bundled in her winter coat, her babysitter hovering anxiously behind her. The sitter had received an emergency call and needed to leave. Jake's carefully constructed evening had collapsed entirely. With no other options, he had brought both his daughter and his inebriated boss home. Mia had fallen asleep in the car, and he'd had to half carry her inside while Lily watched with curious eyes. He'd put his boss in the guest room, found her something to sleep in, and then spent the night staring at his ceiling, wondering if he'd still have a job in the morning. Jake's alarm finally buzzed. He silenced it quickly and slipped out of bed, pulling on a t-shirt to go with his pajama pants. He needed to start breakfast for Lily and figure out what to do about the woman sleeping down the hall. In the kitchen, he moved quietly, starting the coffee maker and pulling out ingredients for pancakes, Lily's favorite. The familiar routine calmed his nerves slightly. He could handle this. He was a master of handling impossible situations. He'd been doing it since his wife walked out 4 years ago, leaving him alone with a 3-year-old. "Daddy!" Lily's voice came from the hallway. She stood there in her unicorn pajamas, her dark curls a wild mess around her face. "Is Miss Winters still here?" Jake winced at her volume. "Yes, honey, but she's sleeping, so we need to be quiet." Lily nodded solemnly, then she whispered, "Is she sick? She was walking funny last night." "She was just very tired," Jake explained, lifting his daughter onto one of the kitchen stools. "How about you help me make pancakes?" Lily's face lit up, and Jake felt the familiar surge of love that never failed to overwhelm him. Whatever happened with his boss, he would protect this, his daughter's happiness, their little world together. The coffee maker beeped, and Jake poured himself a cup, taking a long sip before setting to work on breakfast. He had just poured the first pancake onto the griddle when he heard it, the unmistakable sound of the guest room door opening. His heart rate doubled instantly. Mia Winters stood frozen in the hallway, one hand pressed against her temple, the other clutching the hem of Jake's oversized t-shirt in a futile attempt to make it longer. Her long legs seemed to go on forever, and her usually perfect auburn hair was tousled around her shoulders. She looked younger, vulnerable, and completely mortified. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, her voice, "I believe I require some explanation." Before Jake could respond, Lily piped up from her stool. "Daddy said you were tired. We're making pancakes. Do you like blueberries in yours? Daddy makes the best pancakes in the whole world." Mia's eyes widened as she noticed the child for the first time. Something flickered across her face: surprise, confusion, and something else Jake couldn't identify. Mia began, then stopped, clearly at a loss. Jake set down his spatula. "Lily, can you watch this pancake for me? Remember, when the bubbles pop, it's time to flip." He crossed to the hallway, keeping a respectful distance from his boss. "Miss Winters, I've put some clothes for you in the bathroom. They're my sister's, but they should fit. First door to the right. Why don't you get dressed and then we can talk?" Relief washed over her face. "Thank you," she said quietly, then disappeared into the bathroom. Jake returned to the kitchen, his mind racing. In the 3 years he'd worked for Mia Winters, he'd never seen her anything less than perfectly composed. She was brilliant, demanding, and completely focused on the company she'd built from nothing. Employees respected her, feared her a little, but no one really knew her. There were rumors, of course, that she had no personal life, that she slept at the office, that she was incapable of normal human emotion. The woman who emerged from his bathroom 10 minutes later looked nothing like the CEO who stalked the halls of Winters Architectural Design in designer suits and foreign heels. Dressed in his sister's jeans and sweater, her face washed clean of makeup, she looked almost ordinary, beautiful still, but human. "Something smells good," she said awkwardly, hovering at the edge of the kitchen. "Pancakes," Lily announced proudly, pointing to the stack Jake had been building. "I helped." "I can see that," Mia said, her voice softening slightly as she addressed the child. "They look delicious." Jake gestured to one of the kitchen stools. "Please sit." "Coffee?" "God, yes," Mia said with feeling, then immediately looked embarrassed by her lack of formality. Jake poured her a cup and slid it across the counter, along with cream and sugar. She took it black, wrapping her hands around the mug as if seeking warmth. "Lily," Jake said, "why don't you go pick out your clothes for today while I talk to Miss Winters?" Lily looked between the adults, clearly sensing the tension. "Okay, but don't eat all the pancakes without me." She hopped down from her stool and disappeared down the hallway. Silence fell between them. Jake turned back to the stove, flipping another pancake to give Mia a moment to collect herself. "I don't remember how I got here," she finally said, her voice quiet but steady. Jake kept his eyes on the griddle. "You had too much to drink at the holiday party. You were going to drive yourself home. I couldn't let that happen. So you brought me to your house." There was an edge to her voice now. Jake turned to face her. "You refused to call me a cab. You wouldn't give me your address. My babysitter had an emergency and needed to leave." Mia's face flushed. "I see." She took a sip of her coffee and the clothing situation. Now it was Jake's turn to flush. "You were unsteady. I helped you to the guest room. You said you couldn't sleep in your dress. I gave you a t-shirt and left. That's all." She studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her. "Thank you," she said finally, "for preventing me from driving. That would have been unwise." "You're welcome." Another silence fell between them, less tense than before. "I didn't know you had a daughter," Mia said eventually. "It's in my personnel file." "Yes, well," she looked uncomfortable. "I don't always have time to review those details." Jake nodded, unsurprised. Mia Winters was known for focusing on results, not on the people who produced them. It was one of the reasons the company was so successful and why employee turnover was so high. "She's lovely," Mia added, glancing toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. "How old is she?" 7. "And her mother?" Jake stiffened. "Not in the picture." Mia seemed to sense she'd hit a nerve. "I apologize. That's not my business." "It's fine." Jake turned back to the stove, flipping the last pancake onto the stack. "Breakfast is ready. You're welcome to join us." To his surprise, she nodded. "Thank you. I'd like that." Lily returned now, dressed in mismatched clothes that made Jake wince, purple leggings, a green striped shirt, and a red cardigan, but she looked so pleased with herself that he couldn't bring himself to suggest a change. "I dressed myself," she announced proudly to Mia. "I can see that," Mia replied, and Jake was startled to see a genuine smile on her face. "You have a very creative sense of style." Lily beamed. Daddy says I'm an artist. Is that so? Mia accepted the plate of campcakes Jake handed her. What kind of art do you like to make? And just like that, his fearsome boss was engaged in a serious conversation with his 7-year-old daughter about the merits of finger painting versus watercolors. Jake watched in amazement as Lily chatted away, completely unintimidated by the woman who made seasoned executives tremble. More surprising was how Mia listened, really listened, asking thoughtful questions and nodding at Lily's explanations. There was none of the condescension adults often showed when talking to children. She treated Lily's opinions with the same respect she might give to a colleague. As they ate, Jake found himself seeing Mia Winters in an entirely new light. The sharp edges seemed softer somehow. When she laughed at something Lily said, a real laugh, not the